Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the latest in a series of 4Fuel events. My name's Ralph Lee. I'm head of Factual at Channel 4, and I'm here to welcome you to this event and give you a little bit of an introduction to it. This is the seventh of these 4Fuel events, which are designed to kind of cross-fertilise between digital media producers and TV and documentary producers to create new relationships and discussions with the ambition to spark big ideas, ambitious ideas which might exist in this new and emerging, exciting cross-platform space in which we live. So the plan for this afternoon is to give you a bit of a showcase of things that I've got coming up and to try and generate discussion amongst all of you. This is the seventh of these events that Channel 4 has run. This one is focused on factual. Others have concentrated on comedy, entertainment, news, current affairs, film, these kinds of things. Here, factual, we're taking in the broadest possible sense from documentary, factual entertainment, formatted factual, specialist factual. And the people who are here in this room represent both the television side of factual. I can see some familiar faces who make some of the kind of key primetime output here for Channel 4. But also for me, there are a lot of unfamiliar faces in the room, which presumably means there's lots of either new companies to Channel 4 or people who work in the digital media space, which we're trying to connect more with. The reason we're doing these events at Channel 4 is kind of glaringly obvious. You know, the emergence of the digital space is, I sometimes in my own way liken it a bit to the discovery of the New World in the 17th century, that here you've got these old European powers exploring this new continent they discovered and trying to work out what the future of the Americas would be. And at that point, it's not remotely certain that North America will speak English or that South America will speak a mixture of Spanish and Portuguese. Imagine North America that actually spoke German. You know, that was a very real possibility. It wasn't clear what the resources were in these new worlds. It wasn't clear where the principal points of entry would be, what commerce would emerge in them, what connections there would be between the old and the new worlds. It's an analogy that won't stretch too far because it will break. But I think the idea that rather than think of the new media as just a new media added to radio, television, cinema, etc., but a place that's got a relationship in a way with the old world, with the media that exists and that is being kind of explored by it. And Channel 4, as one of those kind of existing media, is really trying to lead in how we explore and how we connect with the new spaces that are emerging. So, you know, just here in the room, there are some of the people that represent some of the kind of beacon projects that we've done in the last few years. David Dugan here is going to talk a bit about the Foxes Live series that we did earlier this year on Channel 4. Colette Foster at the back of the room there has been doing a lot of sex education programs for Channel 4, and the Sexperience website is actually one that is a really shining example of how television and cross-platform can work together. Will Anderson from Keogh, who was behind Hugh's Fish Fight and the online involvement of the audience and signing petitions and joining the campaign, has been such a huge part of Hugh's work, not just making documentaries about an issue out there in the world, but really kind of asking people to get involved and get behind it. So the motive for doing this is that Channel 4 wants to be leaders in this space, and the truth is, the reason we bring you together in a room to try and cross-fertilise a bit is that we need the old skills and the new skills, and we need, frankly, more ideas than we're getting at the moment. I think our ambition and our ability to fund that ambition is greater than the number of great ideas that are commissionable that come in the door. And so I also think, like the New World, there's plenty of room for privateers out there. It's not just the established producers that are going to be working in this space. I think there's lots of opportunity for new and emerging companies to develop and to bring up ideas in this space. So the plan for this afternoon is we're going to hear from Louise Brown, our commissioning lead for multi-platform commissioning. She's going to give us a brief history of interactive telly. Then there's going to be a panel called Big Hunt, Little Hunt, who you see before you. It's not about Jay and Jeremy. It's about two ways of doing collaborative documentaries. So we're going to be talking about Foxes Live and the award-winning web documentary Where is Gary? There's going to be a technology showcase, and I'm hoping that the strange gadget in front of Adam in the middle here will be explained to us. I suspect that it's, if anyone saw, we did a thing with Damien Hirst recently where he gave us a kind of walkthrough of his new exhibition at Tate Modern. And online, Kate, our Factual Cross-Platform Commissioner, who's at the end there, did a thing where Noel Fielding walked us through the as a kind of preview of the exhibition, filmed on what I think was that gadget there, and it meant that when you played this online, the viewer could pan and tilt the camera. So that thing there is able to capture an image around 360 degrees, and you can play that down the line, giving. And for me as a documentary maker, this was a bit of an earth-shattering revelation, because one of the things you take for granted in documentary is that the camera, where it's pointing, is determined not by the viewer. But for the first time, if you observe how that technology works, the viewer, just like Google Street Map, actually can choose what direction the camera's pointing in and where the action is, giving the opportunity for sort of 360 documentary, which is really quite, if you start thinking about it, it's a sort of groundbreaking opportunity. So there's this technology showcase that we hope will explain that. And then a series of factual specialists will give their own unique, and you'll get kind of showcases of different innovations and different multi-platform content. Following that, there's going to be a discussion where we're going to ask you to work in groups at tables, and the idea is to try and not necessarily develop ideas that are kind of ideas that are pitchable to Channel 4, but sort of working on issues and themes that you get given, try and generate some kinds of discussions and outputs that we can then feed back into the room. And we'll also wrap up with a very clear, succinct description of how to pitch stuff to Channel 4, who are the key people at Channel 4 who are taking these projects forward, so you've got a very clear picture of how to work with us going forward. So this afternoon's event is being run by Jen Topping, who is, where is she? Put your hand up, right at the back there in the corner. And Siobhan, where's Siobhan? Over there. So if you need anything, do yell. And I'm going to hand over now to Louise Brown, who's going to give you this brief history of interactive television. Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Louise. So very exciting. I'm really excited that you're all here. Thank you for coming. The thing that's exciting me actually is how I know, because my background is pretty much purely digital, is how disruptive digital media can be, how it opens up democracy, and how it also opens up new avenues for distribution, which, looking at those of you who have been working in a traditional television documentary world, I know these are all things that you're passionate about as well. You definitely all like making trouble, and you all like getting the message out there. Some of the most enormous successes of multi-platform have been factual. The biggest example, obviously, from Channel 4 that came from Factual Entertainment, there goes one of our themes, is obviously Big Brother, which it isn't probably something that will be discussed openly here. But then I was talking to Adam earlier, who was talking about a project called The Colony, which I think is on Discovery at the moment, which definitely has learnt something from that, but that's something which is then using it to help people understand a lot more about science and about the world in which they live. Other successes on other channels have been things like Springwatch, which are enormous. And I think that's something that I want to keep kind of emphasising is, please, we need to think really, really big when it comes to this, because there's an enormous appetite for getting involved in factual content. And then the last one I was just thinking of, which were the biggest ones, was Embarrassing Bodies, which I don't know how many apps have been downloaded now, Adam, but Embarrassing Bodies is now completely mobile. And how many is it now? 700,000 apps downloaded in about how many weeks? A few weeks?
5.
In 5 weeks. So we're having so much impact with this stuff. I think there's space for more though. There's space for more stories to be told. There are more parts of the world to be opened up, and there are certainly more difficult subjects as well that can be brought to many more people. So anyway, as you're all digesting, I didn't actually produce this film, I'm just introducing it. I think it credited me. But it's kind of a slightly light-hearted look at just a history of interactive programming, because it's been going on for much, much longer than you think. So I guess, without further ado, you run the video, thanks.
Sia Tide from Thornton Heath wrote to us and said,
Mimi, my Persian cat, died at 19. All I wanted to do was to remember her as she was, not as the taxidermist made her.
Which is not exactly how Mr. Harvey recreated Mimi. She arrived wrapped in this.
So welcome live this Halloween night to the first ever TV Ghost Watch. That's the scene in Foxhill Drive in Northolt. Our outside broadcast units are there. That's the house where it might all happen tonight, or it might not. We shall see. You'll be telling us your ghost stories. And as our tale unfolds, we'll be taking your calls about just what you're seeing.
News so far from last month's programme. As far as the main reconstructions are concerned, there was a good response on all of them, although somewhat mixed results so far. You may have read in the papers that the search for whoever murdered Daniel Handley has produced 2 arrests now. The incident room told me it was information from Crime Watch viewers which confirmed the direction their investigations were heading in. And they asked me to pass on their thanks to all the many people who called offering help.
The 3 nominees tonight are Fake Snake Scare, sent in by the Norman family from Morganton, North Carolina. Dress Model Fall, sent in by the Hayes family from St. Louis, Missouri. And Kid Breaks Lollipop, sent in by the Tyler family from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Please vote. Vote, hurry.
Who will it be? Fake Snake Scare, Dress Model Fall, or Kid Breaks Lollipop? We'll find out in a moment.
Oh, welcome to Big Brother, the show that's been described in the press as sick, perverted, and a further lurch into the netherworld of sensation and pornography. And there is no stopping us now, because earlier this evening you voted to kick blonde bombshell Sara off the show, and I can tell you now, it was a very close race between her and Caroline, and Sara was finally voted out by a margin of just 10%.
Digital viewers, play the game with BBC i by pressing the red button on your digital remote now.
If you're playing online, I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, all those results will be number crunched by our boffins, and we'll use some of those a little bit later. Now,
welcome to Embarrassing Bodies, live from the clinic.
We're in the UK's largest hospital, the Queen Elizababeth in Birmingham, where we're using internet technology to open our doors to anyone watching from home.
So, if you want to see us tonight, get online and Skype in for an appointment now.
There's people responding to my tweets. It says that I bully you.
Do you indeed?
Do you think
probably a bit, yeah.
It says
yeah.
That I would get you breastfeeding if you could lactate.
Yeah,
because I'm that bossy.
Because I've got moves.
It's a real mixed bag, isn't it? People love it. People hate it.
It's like Marmite.
I desperately wanted to go north and not just see it all for myself, but photograph it, capture it somehow before it vanishes.
Throughout this experiment, we've seen animals from the top to the bottom of the food chain tackle that 1-ton hippo carcass. During the day, the vultures coming in, particularly on day 1, so many of them arriving to start pecking about, but right down to the maggots and the beetles still continuing the cycle of life, when essentially the carcass was nothing more than skin and bone.
So hopefully stuff to think about, stuff to be inspired by. And now it comes to me to introduce the panellists who you'll see in the programme have a selection of really fantastic experience and also some really great publicity shots, some of them. Thank you. I need to get some numbers there. So we've got Channel 4's Sara Ramsden and Kate Quilton, who are here to talk about Foxes Live from a TV and online commissioning perspective, and also David Duggan from Wimfall, who made it happen. And then with a really different take on the genre, we have Jean-Baptiste Dumont, who was the man behind Where Is Gary, which I hope some of you are aware of because it's a fantastic web documentary. And your host is the godfather of multiplatform commissioning, Adam G.
Well, we've got a very tight session, really. We've got 45 minutes, so I don't want to waste too much time. We may have a little time for questions if we're lucky, but if not, we'll all be around, and hopefully you can get any questions answered after. what we've really got here is two really contrasting examples of factual multi-platform in the form of collaborative documenting, where the program makers are working hand in hand with the audience to achieve their creative end. And as the name of the session suggests, what we have is two hunts. One, a scientific hunt on a large scale and in prime time, Channel 4 being Fox's Live. The other, much more personal, perhaps sociological, which is, one guy's very clever idea, which he tackles with very modest resources, but not modest in ambition, using stuff that's readily available online to tell his story. So contrasting examples, and yet creatively and technically quite a lot of commonalities, which I hope will emerge. So to kick things off, we'll start by looking at Fox's Live, and I'd just like to ask David just to tell us a bit about how the idea came about in the first place.
Right, well, our company makes Inside Nature's Giants, which is about cutting up dead animals, and we'd seen, the hippo feast go out, and so I suppose the brief to our team, our natural history team, was to try and come up with a big event, a live event that would somehow capture people's imaginations and would hopefully do something really good. And we thought of, and these two producers worked away thinking about what we could do. We knew it couldn't be Springwatch, but it had to be something a bit I don't know. We needed an animal that was rude, brazen, and divisive, a bit like Channel 4 really, and the fox was the perfect animal. So that's how it came about, and we went to see Sara Ramsden, who's, we then discovered actually quite likes foxes, and so that was very lucky.
Sounds like one of those terrible interview questions about what animal is your channel.
Yeah.
Sarah, what was it that really struck you about it when you first heard?
I commission very viscerally from the gut, and I occasionally see foxes in my street, and when I see a fox, I have this amazing sense of the wild right there on your doorstep, and I'm very, very excited when I see one, and I've tried to photograph them. And so when David came and pitched this to me, and I was quite new, I'm only temporary commissioning and filling in for Tanya, and I thought, I want to get one out quite quickly, and we realised that we actually had a terribly tight window here, because we couldn't be on when Springwatch was on, and we had to be there, we had to be sort of late March, early April, when the cubs were at the right age, just to be coming out of their sheds. Out of their dens. So we suddenly realised, holy shit, we've only got about 7 weeks before this is going to be on air. So I wanted to do it because I know that there is a lot of issues around foxes, because it's the wild, deep within the heart of our own suburban gardens, and I love them. So.
Lovely. And what about you, Kate? What really turned you on about it?
What turned me on about foxes? Well, Adam. I think what was really exciting for us was that off the back of Hippo Wild Feast Live, it was an opportunity to kind of do something on our own turf in the UK, which meant that already we were kind of getting a head start, because we tried to do lots of kind of whizzy new things in Africa, and it was really, really difficult. We successfully delivered a live stream from Africa, but we also wanted to track the animals with live GPS. And that didn't work. We failed. We tried, but it didn't work. And so this was an opportunity to kind of do all the things that we wanted to do and more on our doorstep, and actually do things like live GPS tracking of animals, which we've never done before.
Brilliant. Just to not make any assumptions about who's seen what, we're just going to show a short clip that sort of captures the essence of the project. So if we could show the first clip, please.
And an online campaign engage the public in an innovative natural history experiment.
We'll be gathering data from across the country in the biggest ever fox survey that's been attempted. We need your help, Ray.
For the first time, a television campaign encouraged viewers to take part in a comprehensive scientific study of a wild urban animal. By going online, they could upload fox sightings and check out activity in their neighbourhood compared to other parts of the country.
You can see there's the map of the UK. Let's have a look in Surrey. Isn't that the most brilliant sight? Thank you, Becky. Ellesmere Port. Is that not the cutest little cub? Those blue eyes will turn brown, though, as it gets older.
18,000 people filled in an online survey which revealed why foxes divide public opinion.
I think they're cute, but they're also vermin.
We are taking over the property, basically. They were there first.
And state-of-the-art live tracking maps charted the forays of wild foxes.
We've got 7 foxes in all, each of them wearing a GPS collar.
People were able to track the foxes live, seeing how fast and how far they travelled each day, gradually building up a picture of each fox's daily routine. The opening show featured the live release of Chico, a rescued fox wearing a GPS collar.
Let's set Chico free. Off you go. I'm going to be tracking Chico live here. You can see where he's been today. That's where he is right now. You can do the same right now by logging on.
This highly popular twin screening moment generated over 1,000 hits per second, the largest Channel4.com hit rate since the Big Brother evictions.
Welcome back to Foxes Live, and they are very live at the moment at both our dens.
There was 24-hour live streaming from 2 urban fox dens.
Yeah, we've got 5 cubs. Oh, one of the adults coming in with a bit of food.
Featuring the life and death struggles of the vixens and their young cubs.
To the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that we've ever seen this filmed.
Oh no, what is that? She's got a dead cub.
Online viewers watched the den streams late into the night, commenting on the unfolding stories.
One character though, Tom, seems a bit of a loner.
He's likely to be bottom of the pack.
User-generated content was integral to the broadcast.
Last night we asked if anyone had seen a black fox or a hybrid smoky red. This is a black fox that's been seen in Surrey, and this one is from Romford in Essex, and it's a cross between a red fox and a black fox. That is a smoky red. You need to be frightened.
Lively debate took place on set and online.
This is what's going to happen.
No, we're saying...
That's what I'm saying.
That's what's happening there. What we're saying is if you feed foxes...
And series highlights were made available on the website. The scale of the project generated a media buzz across radio, magazines, and the press. And with over 36,000 sightings and surveys submitted online, the final show presented the findings.
Entering houses was a really big shock for me. It's a lot more than I thought.
So we started off with about 79% people liking foxes, and over the week, as the programme's gone on, that's went up to 86%.
So now what everyone wants to know, how many urban foxes do you think there are?
A population estimate from sightings of around about 40,000.
Citizen Science have produced the most comprehensive study of the urban foxes in the UK ever undertaken. By seamlessly integrating content across multiple platforms, Foxes Live inspired mass participation and entertained the nation.
Right, so there you have it in a nutshell. Now, David, you had Commissioner from Specialist Factual, you had multiplatform Commissioner, Winfall doing the telly. Who else was involved?
Well, we were very keen to keep the whole project under one roof, so we did have the option of bringing in, an online specialist producer. We decided to bring in an executive producer, and then obviously the web team we brought in. We brought in other people. Yumika we brought in, and Groovy Gecko also were involved as well in the streaming. But I think what we wanted was that editorially the whole thing should be in one place, and that certainly happened. One thing I should say though before we go on
Yes.
though, is just how, I mean, seeing all that there, when we started out on this thing with only whatever it was 8 or 9 weeks to go, everyone told us no, it's impossible. There were like 3 no's. No, you can't get a Home Office license to tag. That usually takes about 3 or 4 months. No, you can't get such a complicated website up and running. And now you can't put cameras in dens. All the natural history people in Bristol were telling us that they'd always set up the den and then the foxes had come to inhabit it. So to try and do this was probably the most nail-biting exercise I've ever undertaken. And it was incredibly, incredibly complicated because I can't tell you how desperate we were to find dens. And just when we found dens, I mean, there was a whole story associated with the Langdon den where one of the fox cubs died. And I could see Sarah's eyes light up thinking, oh, you got a story. About an hour later, we suddenly found out that all 3 cubs had died. And I was, oh no, now we've got nothing, you know. And then it was like this all the time. And we had a den in Manchester, and we had a den somewhere else, and then the cubs, then they'd all disappear. So it was really tense.
Meanwhile, I'm saying to you every week, you can do whatever you want. You have to promise me live streamed foxes.
No pressure. Yeah.
So just the usual manic depressive dynamics of
Yes,
TV,
yes.
amplified a bit.
But I think what was interesting with the obviously with the online side was that I think that for them it came as a bit of a shock, because I think we're quite used to, especially on Inside Nature's Giants, you know, we sometimes get a phone call and we're on a plane and sorting it out and filming the next day, and I think to actually get such a complicated site up and running was a fantastic achievement on the web design. So it was really
And can we just mention, it was Numico that actually built the site for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Windfall subcontracted to Numico, and they did an absolutely phenomenal job to build the website that they did in such a short amount of time. It was really astounding because there was new technology in there, and they were absolutely brilliant.
Especially with all the moving targets going on, because you know we wanted this questionnaire, this quite complicated questionnaire. Now they'd done the Bradford one, hadn't they? But then what we wanted, of course, was we were collaborating with a scientist in Brighton who really wanted to use the data to do proper science, and that created all kinds of complications further down the line.
And so Numico are in, is it Manchester, isn't
Yeah.
it? Or
Leeds.
Leeds, yeah. So they're in Leeds, you're in North London. How did that all work?
Well, it worked really well, really. I mean, lots of conference calls. They just showed us, the storyboards and things. The other thing was that they had to kind of lead the design as well, because obviously that was going to be coming out before the actual program. So we had some. I mean, I'm not pretending it was easy, because there were lots of things that were quite difficult to do with getting the opinion poll, getting all the technology sorted out, and of course that moment when Chico was released was brought down the entire Channel 4 website. I mean, there were so many people logging on. I think none of us expected there to be such a huge uptake, did we?
No, I mean, the traffic that we got with episode 1 when Chico was released was phenomenal, and it was over and above anything we could have even estimated, because we estimate, before any of our shows go out, we predict how much traffic we're going to get, and we test against that level. I mean, we predict the number and then we kind of double it, just to kind of for security, but it was phenomenal. I mean, it was the second highest level of traffic to a Channel 4 website. And the number 1 spot is held by John James when he was evicted from the Big Brother house in 2010. So it is phenomenal that amount of people. We've got 1,000 hits per second.
I thought it was pretty amazing also that the British public actually loaded up so much stuff, because I think none of us were quite sure whether we just get a few thousand sightings, but to actually end up with whatever it was, about
how many did you get in the end?
18,000 sightings.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people sending in their little, their addresses, and sometimes uploading photographs and video.
And quite complex text stories as well.
Yeah.
And then one of the most meaningful experiential bits of it is you come home from the office and you log on and you look at your own postcode and see who'd uploaded fox sightings in your own streets. And then the text thing was great, because you'd realise there was a feeder 3 streets away, and it sort of changed your own perception of the wildlife pattern in your own streets, and that was really interesting, and that changed nightly. It was great.
And what you mentioned, the another partner there in Brighton, the academic institution. How did that all pan out?
Well, I mean, the first thing we had to do with them was, obviously we were very keen to put collars on a group of foxes so that people could track their movements, and we needed to get a Home Office licence to do that, and they were very instrumental in getting that. And she also wanted to see, a lot of other academics had said no, and the reason she said yes was because she said, even though this is going to be really difficult and probably to get this up and running in time. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do this kind of research, and so she went for it and got a huge amount of research out of it as a result.
Excellent. So a very fast commission, driven by quite a strange combination of things. So a bit of scheduling, a bit of nature's cycles, a bit of technology. What sort of were the lessons to come out of just the sheer speed and making that decision as well?
I mean, I've been out of commissioning for 9-10 years, so I've sort of come back. You know, I've never tweeted before. I'm quite naive in terms of a lot of what we try to do. I think possibly my naivety was partly responsible for us trying to do too much, but I worked on That's Life. And I worked on, and I adored Big Brother, and I just think there's, I mean, in terms of the bigger themes of this session, I think there is so much to learn from this in terms of there's the community connection with knowing what's going on in your own streets, which was crucial, but the community connection with the groups of people that started to talk to each other as they were watching the streaming, I think is really potent and something that we should all in this room think, where do we take that next? I remember watching Paul and Helen fall in love, that Big Brother 2, night after night after night. I would watch several hours, I'm a bit quite sad really, I'd watch several hours of Paul and Helen on Big Brother streaming 10, 11 years ago, and the sense of privilege of realising a real thing was happening in front of your eyes, unmediated, was so powerful. And we got a bit of that with these fox cubs. We saw in real time, night after night after night, these foxes behaving totally naturalistically, and with an encounter with a hedgehog. And then realising the fact that the public themselves were starting to assign value to those stories. Like the Surrey Den, we called the parents Margot and Jerry because they were living the good life. And then we called two of the cubs Tom and Barbara. And then there was Stan and Ollie. And our lovely, one of our interactive producers was tweeting as Stan, as a cub, but a real person out there, a member of the public, started tweeting as Margot the Fox, and I thought, oh my God, this is a whole new form of relationship with the audience.
So the audience was a bit wild, and
yes, yeah.
And did you try and tame it, or how did you deal with the wild
no, because
audience?
we had some debates, didn't we? Because Margot was very scurrilous and basically tweeted that she'd been to have a shit on Piers Morgan's rug, and she'd shagged a badger around the back of the flats, and she'd shagged it. And I thought, well, what do we as a broadcaster have as a responsibility to communicate with someone who's taking our material and half taking the piss out of it and half doing their own jokes with it? So so she said, Margot said she'd had a shag, and I said, well, should we do well, I don't think so, Margot, because in actual fact, foxes only have coitus in December and January, so I think probably you haven't. But I thought, is that too po-faced? And so we thought probably we shouldn't engage with them. But
it was all part of the buzz. And how did the buzz work for you?
Well, there was a lot of buzz around it, and I mean, talking with people kind of half taking the piss and half really enjoying it. Greg James on Radio 1 did Mice Live, kind of the day after we went live, and was talking about it lots. There was a lot of kind of lots of chat on Radio 1, which was brilliant. But with regards to buzz, surprisingly, I was really surprised by this. We launched the website a week before the show started. No, actually, it was about a week and a half. And before even the first trail had gone out for the show, we actually had kind of 400 sightings posted on the site, which was really surprising for me, kind of working in this space, to see that kind of interaction that was purely born out of kind of social media over a weekend before even the word was out there, kind of on TV. That was surprising, but I think that's totally down to the fact that you're dealing with subject matter which most people have got something to say about, which is brilliant, and so we're just kind of spot on with foxes.
What about the sort of sheer scale of the project? What challenges did that give you?
The sheer scale. I mean, as we kind of always end up kind of talking about this at the end of multi-platform projects, but the fact is that kind of online production timelines are very different to TV production timelines, and there are always going to be kind of sticking points. And where in TV you might want a kind of small change, perhaps even in the edit, kind of just on the day of TX even, you can do that. But online, even the smallest things, when you're like, but I don't want that box there, I want it there. And it's like, oh no, that's going to be really problematic, because if we make that change, we release the site again, and it could cause a whole kind of lot of problems for us. And so I think we had kind of a few sticking points along the way with things, but managed to resolve them as far as possible. But those timelines, it's just difficult to kind of run concurrently. But I think what was fantastic is the way that Wimfall built the team within their production company, because ordinarily, on other projects, what we've done before is a kind of TV production company will buddy up with a digital partner and kind of execute the whole thing out of 2 offices and 2 companies working on it. But I think the fact that Wimfall just had everything in-house and ran with it in that way was brilliant.
One of the things that was that we had to change constantly was the title of the wretched programme. Originally, it was going to be called Urban Fox Hunt, or even Urban Fox Hunt Live, and then I think Jay decided it was going to be called Fox Hunt Live, and then word crept out that it was going to be called this, and there was absolute outrage. So suddenly everyone chickened out, didn't they? It was kind of, so you can just imagine the poor web design team. We had a whole beautiful sort of fox hunt, and all that sort of motif, and then sorry, it's not that anymore. It's Foxes Live. Wild in the City.
So the title changed right at the last minute, and then when senior executives at Channel 4 saw the first bits of the site, and they loved it so much and were really impressed and saw that it was something that actually worth going with, they put 2.5 hours of extra television into the schedules with 10 days warning.
So what's the impact for you on that?
When Sarah said, David, are you sitting down? I said, no, I haven't sat down for the last 2 days. That was kind of... But I think it gives you an idea of how brilliantly the team, Numiko and our own web team, that site was quite standout. I mean, it did have all the little GPS tracking thing. It was actually fantastic to follow Diesel, one of the foxes, swimming across the river in Newport and following him around. And I think when the editorial team, Jay and everyone at Channel 4 saw what the scale of it, they thought, wow. And so that actually fed back and got us more hours of TV. The only problem was trying to fill it, really.
And it's when you start to get that virtuous circle where the fact that you've got the site works so well to give you more content to do, that's when it... I mean, one of the debating points and learning points that I've been wrestling with is how to configure the broadcast with the multi-platform offering.
You mean the sort of relative time?
Yes, and I think that is a real challenge, and I don't think we've resolved it, and I think it's something that we need to debate a lot in going forward, because I never saw them as separate, but for me what was online was just as much a part of what the project was. But do you have to have a telly presence in order to drive traffic to the site? If you do, how do you make that small enough so that you don't put all your best content in that first show, so that you don't come too soon, shoot your load, to use a revolting metaphor, because it got a bit of a buzz around it. The first show rated way better than any of the other shows. It was partly because the other shows were up against Britain's Got Talent, but that felt like the great big launch, when it was meant to be a little sort of launch to get people to go to the site, and then we do our proper shows. But it was the other way around. So, I would like to think that in the future, if I did another one of these, that you launch and then just keep on going and do it all in one blast, but then you can't data mine as deeply as you would like to get some headlines from what the user-generated stuff is. But it was probably one of the least satisfactory bits of the actual programme, was delivering the results of the survey and of the data mining. And you almost could just give some brief headlines if the scientists will play ball. Yeah.
That's, I think, the challenge of the feedback loop is it's brilliant. We saw a kind of history of interactive TV, and it's fantastic to work on programmes where the audience are involved in the editorial. But like you said, ultimately, the results show was probably the weakest of the lot. And you could just get into territory of thinking about you can't hand the whole show over, because that's kind of what you end up with.
Yeah. And I don't think you needed to have seen the results to, I mean, by far the most buzz was on the first show, and the most satisfactory content was the Tuesday show.
Yeah.
And in terms of the interactive ideas, did everything kind of come off to your expectation, or some things you tried and didn't quite pull off? Or?
To be honest, everything actually exceeded expectations, which is surprising because quite often it's the other way around. But yeah, they did. As in the GPS, I did not expect it to work as well as it did. You know, it was real time, and we were watching these foxes go for little strolls along the kind of coastline, and real time, and it was, and it looked fantastic, and it worked brilliantly. The one spot that I was really kind of was scared about, really, and probably had kind of sleepless nights, as did Sarah, was the fox dens, because we were rigging these fox dens and just everything crossed, hoping and praying that the foxes were going to stay in the dens once we'd rigged them, and that they were actually going to do something, and that we were going to capture something, because it's a big expense rigging 2 fox dens and then kind of continually having a live stream pumping out of them for kind of 24 hours a day, and if there's no action, then I mean, it's a big waste of money. But we were really lucky, and that we did get some fantastic action, and we're even lucky because we did little kind of highlight spots on the TV just after the news every night, kind of between the kind of main shows. And we were lucky in that about 50% of those actually we cut to live, and about 50% actually had some Fox action, which was good.
Very good going. So, yes, moving on to Jean-Baptiste, following red-haired things around the place. Can you tell us a bit about Where's Gary?
Yes, so it's a little bit similar. It's like an interactive adventure without knowing what would be the results. It's based on a very personal story. I've been tricked by a con artist in a train station, so it's a very stupid story. Someone who says he needs money to get back home in his country, in Norway. And I've fallen into the trap. And my project was my goal was to find him again through a collaborative investigation. And it was also a 10 weeks project. The goal was to make 20 video episodes and to make live tweets and Facebook, so that people could really follow my investigation in real time. But of course, it was a much smaller scale project.
Shall we have a look at a little clip just to get a feel for it?
I have been tricked. It could have happened to you, but it happened to me. The perfect story. He says his name is Gary, that he's fallen the trap, and now he's in deep shit. And he needs 100 euros to get back home to Norway. No money, no paper, no credit card, a bulletproof story, a real professional. I fell for it. But when I enter his name in Google, wow, that's amazing. Lots of people have fallen into the trap. Word after word, the same story, all over Europe for many years. Maybe you will be next. Maybe you have crossed paths already. Who are you, Gary? Why do you put so much effort and intelligence in such a job? Why do you always give the same name? Are you playing a game? Okay then, I will be your opponent. I give myself 10 weeks to track him down, to reconstruct his story, to meet his victims, to study his techniques of con artist. Follow my investigation in real time, an interactive documentary for which I need you to participate.
So can you tell us a little bit about this thing of asking the public to help you in this way?
Yes, the goal was to find other victims, because there was not really a story existing yet. Just I had found that Gary has made a lot of victims everywhere, but I didn't know how to contact them. There was no story, so I had the idea. I was thinking a lot about my story because I found it interesting, and I found it so interesting that Gary had so many victims everywhere.
And he always used the same name.
Yeah. So that was fascinating, and before that I didn't know anything about web documentaries, and that's when looking for an idea to find him that I found this project of making a collaborative investigation and trying to find people that would have heard about the story, and maybe to find other victims, and cherry on the cake, finding Gary.
And
Did you have any funding at this point?
yes. In Flanders, they have a fund for like how do you say that experimental projects, not from the film funds, but not very classical. They have some possibilities.
And when did you realise it was starting to take off?
Actually, we had it well prepared with the producer. We decided beforehand that we wanted to make like a challenge in 10 weeks, 20 episodes. And we also had a launch with a press release. We thought it would be interesting to make like a buzz from the beginning. And we invested in a good press release with a good press agent, and it was really a good idea because the media really liked the story. And from the first days, a lot of newspapers, etc., contacted me to get an interview, and it helped a lot to build the buzz, and that was exactly what we needed.
So you used other media to amplify what you were doing from the start.
Yeah.
Might be quite good to have a look at the clip about the media, actually.
The A.
Soms zijn schuldbewijs. Ik heb zijn schuldbewijs bijgehouden. Dat kan ik hem ooit presenteren van... Hey, you owe me some money, man. Give me my 80 euros back.
Floris is just the first of a long series. The media just love the story and the coverage is just great.
C'est une première sur le net, une enquête collective et interactive pour retrouver
Documentairemaker Jean-Baptiste werd 1,5 jaar geleden slachtoffer van deze oplichting.
De eerste vraag dat hij altijd stelde aan iedereen is: spreek je Engels?
Asked me if I spoke English.
Do you speak English?
Do you speak English?
The media coverage of the project allows me to get in touch with many victims who have had exactly the same experience with Gary.
Geloof ik €60 gegeven. Het is €100, 150 euro.
It was €200.
I gave him £100.
Il y a un distributeur qui ne fonctionne pas. Et tout de suite, il me dit, mais il y en a un autre, au moins un. Et je me dis, bah, tiens, il connaît bien la gare.
He was average build.
That's it.
Red hair, yeah. So it was really kind of amped up by other media. Did you get any criticism for, that you were trying to sort of make something out of nothing, or that you were trying to sort of artificially stimulate this story?
Yes, actually, in the beginning everything was great, and all the media were just speaking about it, making the buzz big, because I think they liked it because it's a very personal project, a little bit crazy, and also authentic. People could feel that was me doing it for real. But a French website, leposte.fr, it's a big website in France. Suddenly, they thought that they were sure they had found the new hoax from Belgium. You know, we are specialists in Belgium for hoaxes. And they were, the Belgian again, they are doing a big hoax. And they were like trying to find a lot of proofs of evidence it was fake. But actually, it was great for us because, again, it helped to build even bigger buzz, and people wanted to check by themselves, and that helped us to make it bigger.
Now, tell us a bit about how you use social media and other networks as part of building this project.
Actually, everything happened on Facebook. We had made a website. We thought it would be the nerve center of the project, but Facebook became more important, and people were sharing the videos. We were also constantly answering to everyone. I think it's important to give that feeling that that's personal, that's me doing it. So when someone posted something, I was replying, and also a lot of people were interested to share their own stories. Maybe they had not met Gary, but they were happy to share a story they would have had with another artist. So we had a place to share those ideas.
So you built the website, but Facebook became the hub, and I used YouTube?
Yes, the videos were on
And
YouTube.
then, actually, if we can look at the next clip, we can explore a bit further about this reliance on Facebook and existing networks. Could we look at
So
the
you
next
mean
one?
with the problem with Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a B.
Out of the blue, a certain Michael calls me.
Hello, Jean-Baptiste.
He makes me seriously understand that I must stop this, as he says, insulting project.
You want to expose him. You want to shame and ridicule him.
No, that's really not my point. Of course not.
Understand, I just want you to understand that Gary fears no one. I fear no one. I don't fear death. You're now going to meet me. You have no choice. You say you continue the film, you must meet me.
I let Nele and Peter listen to a part of the conversation.
Perhaps you will not be able to do a film.
Why?
I will eliminate either you or Gary.
Come on.
Come on, what? I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose.
Voilà, c'est ça l'idée de situation technique.
Crisis meeting. Instead of killing me, Michael has managed to take down our Facebook page by reporting it as libel. Facebook was the nerve center of the project. We were completely depending on it to communicate with our audience. And now, in a snap, we just lost all the fans and content. Facebook's will is God's will.
Yeah. But of course, Facebook would not take any risk. They would not start to make an investigation to know if it's real or of what's.
So you had no right to reply. They just took it down.
They wanted a signed document by Gary proving he was okay with it. But of course, I was looking for him, so it was not possible.
So, I mean, what do you conclude from that kind of vulnerability at the heart of the project?
When with such a real-time project, you don't know where you are going to, and you cannot expect everything. And that's one example of something you cannot expect. And yeah.
So how did you take it forward from there?
We made a new Facebook page with better wording for the goal of the project. But of course, we had lost all the fans, and they were following the project like this, so we tried to use the other social media we were using, but of course we have lost a lot of attention at that moment. So that's something that can happen with such a...
reliance on third party, things like that. You don't control.
Yeah.
What about the role of kind of networks generally in this project? I mean, did you find it, how did you kind of build the momentum with the networks that we're using?
Actually, just by saying what was factually happening, day by day.
And you were quite personal, you
yes.
were responding individually to stuff. And
yeah, that was, the people could feel I had a real pressure that was difficult to do the challenge, to make like 2 videos a week. And also, for me, it was a challenge to answer all the press requests, and people could feel that difficulty at my side. And also, the people could...
so they responded positively
yes,
to help out.
Yeah, and there was an identification, I think, because it's very personal. And also about the ethical issues I had, because with a normal pre-production, you can see if sometimes you take bad paths. But in this case, for example, I discovered during the project that Gary had a family that didn't want to know and to make all those things public. So that was an ethical issue that I also did not expect.
Well, let's explore that. If we could see the last clip, that will get us into that.
Difficile. Franchement, je crois qu'il va falloir beaucoup de patience. C'est peut-être pas cette année que vous allez rencontrer, ça peut prendre très longtemps, comme ne jamais y arriver.
The British electoral roll. For a few pounds, this online tool lets you know whom are with whom, whose child is whose, and so on. It's quite dull, But by matching this information with the right pages, I am finding people who might be Gary's relatives, mostly in the area of Brighton. I start calling all the floods of Brighton. That's really fun for someone who never liked talking on the phone.
Hello, am I speaking to Mrs. Flood?
Yes.
It is Jean-Baptiste Dumont calling. I'm calling from Belgium. I am a filmmaker and I am making a documentary about Gary Wilson Flood. And I wanted to know if it is a relative of you or someone you know.
Don't think so, no.
Gary no?
What is the name again?
Gary Wilson Flood.
No, that doesn't mean anything at all to me.
Okay, then it's a mistake. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hello?
Hello, are you Mr. Flood?
Hello?
Hello, am I speaking to Mrs. Flood? Hello, am I speaking to Mrs. Flood?
Hello?
Hello, am I speaking to Mr. Flood? Gary Wilson Flood.
No, I don't know Winston Flood at all, I'm sorry.
No? Okay, then it's a mistake, I'm sorry. I am a filmmaker from Belgium.
No, thank you.
No. A relative because you have the same name. But it has nothing to do with you, apparently.
No, not so.
I am a documentary maker and I've been told you are the mother of Gary Wilson Flood, aren't you?
Yes.
Actually, he has become quite famous in Belgium for being a con artist.
Oh my goodness.
While I thought I was being careful and inept with this project, tonight I fucked up big time. I have been tactless. I am ashamed. Gary's mother is a very old lady. I had assumed she was aware of the situation with her son, but apparently she wasn't. I should have thought about this before. I should have been more careful. She still tells me Gary has brothers and sisters. She hasn't had any news for 4 years. The last time he called her, she told him she didn't remember she had a son named Gary. Then she says she will hang up because she's too upset. It's a strange feeling to know tonight, somewhere in England, an old lady is having a bad evening because of me.
So, what was the impact of hitting that ethical wall?
We felt the producer and I felt very bad at that moment because we did not expect it at all to have such issues. For us, Gary was like just someone who was funny or the gentleman. How do you say that?
Gentleman thief.
Yes,
Yeah.
And that was more than that. And yeah, we felt stupid not having thought about that before. But that's one of the aspects we had to deal with during the project. So again, it's not always easy to do such a real-time project. But you can be sure after that became funnier than this. I think it's a bit negative to last video clip.
Yeah.
I felt people, ooh. But yeah.
And just to sort of round off, what's the sort of the main thing you kind of you learned from this very different project for you?
I think it's great for any interactive project to find the best network to work with. In this case, all the victims of Gary were actually a good network because to see the project, they were the perfect ambassadors. And that's a network that Gary had built for me, actually, and I just used it because all those people were very happy to finally hear something more about that story and be able to share it with their friends, etc. So I think it's good for such a project to use existing networks that are very specific to the project.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. Kate, while I'm on this side, can I ask you what's the main thing you walk away from Foxes with? Because you've got lots of experience in this already.
With foxes, the biggest thing. I mean, Sarah has touched on it already, but it is this thing of how do we bring an audience to something that we're doing online, and yeah, as Sarah said, shoot our load with kind of doing a kind of big launch show and then just configuring it. So we kind of need to think kind of more carefully about that, because it's difficult to grow projects online. Yeah. You did it brilliantly. But yeah, it's tricky. But I think if we did do it again, we would structure the TV differently, the scheduling of it.
Okay, that's good. Sarah?
It's just made me more excited than I can say about what the potential of this sort of material is. I mean, I'm of a slightly older generation, and often you think, oh, the new stuff, oh, it's all newfangled. But just the level of connection with the audience and the potential to get content that's so much more authentic and to work with it and the potential of that real-time live interaction with the audience. I just think we haven't started with this. I just think who knows, as Ralph said, who knows where the next big thing's going, and it's going to come from, it's going to come from there. We just don't know what it's going to be, and I think it's really exciting.
Absolutely. And David, I mean, quite new territory for you in some respects. What was the main thing you brought away from it?
Well, I mean, the only other thing of this kind of, which wasn't even approaching this scale, was Surgery Live. We did Surgery Live, where there was, as you know, a lot of where you could tweet the surgeon while he was doing live surgery, which felt pretty exciting. But this was something else, and I really did feel that in a funny sort of way, the online stuff was more important than the TV, and I can't quite explain that, because in terms of absolute numbers, it wasn't, but in terms of the feeling it had and the way it all felt, it did feel like they were on the verge of something, absolutely massive, and you could see how this could really take off in other ways as well.
Yeah. So a very new way of telling stories with some very new tools. We've got a couple of minutes, so we could take a couple of questions. It would be nice to hear some reactions.
I just wanted to ask a question about ethics. So, sometimes ethics online and ethics in television programmes are very different. Sort of how you would deal with a phone call, recording a phone call, for example. If you were making a television film, that would be really difficult to do without all sorts of protocols, but somehow doing it the way you did it liberated you, but then had difficult consequences. I just wanted to explore that a little bit about sort of pushing boundaries. Sometimes you can push boundaries online in ways that you can't in television, and how that informs the other. So that's rather a sort of rambling question, sorry.
No, you've got the point.
I was just saying one thing. I mean, I think in some of this we're making it up as we go along, because very early on we'd thought, oh, should we worry about the health and safety of the foxes we've tagged? And I was, oh no, it'll be fine. And then at the last minute we were still rewriting the protocol for how we were going to protect the foxes.
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a divisive...
Half an hour before we went on air. Yeah. And because we didn't know whether we had a duty towards them or not, but then it's the real timeless that sort of changes everything in terms of your relationship with them, and we suddenly at the last minute put this pointless security guard on to protect Chico, just in case someone killed him.
The best security was that Manu was playing Man City that night, so no one was around. So. But no, I mean, it was a serious issue, because we did get threats. People were saying, well, I'm going to take out, thanks for telling us where the foxes are, I'm going out with a shotgun tonight and find one. Yeah. Now, I didn't really believe these threats, but they were there, and we did to try and design protocols to actually work out what we would do if we did feel one of our foxes was under threat.
But I think the challenges that you had as well, with some of these projects, I do think we are making it up as we go along in terms of how we take something that has been in what would have been a documentary maker's mind that they would have had 6 weeks or in an edit to sort out, and because we put it online then and there, we just have to think it up instantly, and mistakes will be made, I think.
Just so I think for me it's less a distinction of, well, with TV these rules apply, and online we don't adhere to those rules. Just I suppose at Channel 4, any content we make, we kind of ultimately kind of adhere to the Ofcom code, and so the same rules apply for us. So we would never shoot a phone call like that and put it online. But in Belgium and on your projects,
I mean,
yeah.
Were you conscious that you were inhabiting a much more grey area than if you'd been working for a big TV network?
Yes,
in the normal
sure,
way?
because I had the pressure. I had to put something online, and that's what I had. And if I didn't show it, the story would not be good. And we had a lot of discussions with the producer. For example, the mother of Gary, when she answers, we have maybe spoken for 2 hours about the fact if we let the "oh my goodness" when I told her or not. I was not for that, and the producer wanted to keep it, and I just wanted not one word of what she said. And even now, I still have that same point of view. When I see it now, I think, now that's too much.
Yeah. Just take one more from the back. I think that's all we've got time for. Mark, do you want to? That's what. Yeah.
So I was struck both of them use Facebook. Both projects use Facebook as for the communication channel, and I hadn't even occurred. Not controlling Facebook is one thing, but knowing that actually someone can completely destroy your whole communication. Is that something we now need to be starting to think much more carefully about? Because it's what makes it different from those previous, the older generation of interactive TV things. We didn't have the networks to capitalise on. Now you've got the networks to capitalise on, which sort of takes some of the pressure away. But if we can't control them and protect them, is that going to become a real problem?
I think that might be a good one. Kate, do you mind picking up on that? As you're a specialist in that.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I suppose, for a kind of big broadcaster like us at Channel 4, we would never run Fox's Live solely on Facebook. I mean, it doesn't deliver kind of technically, and then also actually we want people to come to kind of channel4.com. So we wouldn't take that risk, but I mean, as we've kind of witnessed, like that has happened with your project. They literally pulled the rug from under your feet, and that was it. They just squashed it. So yeah, would you use Facebook again? If you started this whole process again, would you focus everything on Facebook?
Yes, but I would pay attention to respect the rules of Facebook to be sure that we are totally legal and
rules of which can change overnight.
Yeah.
We've got time for one more? No, okay. Well, listen, thanks very much. We'll all be around for the rest of the afternoon, so you can pick up with any of these guys, but thank you.